All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a seriously fascinating journey to decode what might literally be the ultimate blueprint of human consciousness. We're talking about taking some of the absolute oldest mystical traditions on the planet and looking at them not as ancient myths, but as literal, structural schematics. Which brings us to this massive, game-changing question. What if three totally distinct ancient spiritual systems were in reality just one single hidden instruction manual? We're talking about Kabbalah, Tantric yoga, and Hebrew mysticism. For centuries, right, these have been treated as completely separate paths. But today, we're asking a revolutionary question. Were these ancient shamans, mystics, and yogis actually observing the exact same energetic machinery, just describing it through their own different cultural lenses? So the absolutely crucial point to grasp here is this core pattern. Consciousness descends from unity into form and then ascends back to unity. That cycle is the beating heart of all three of these frameworks. Whether you're looking at the emanation of the Kabbalistic Sephiroth trickling downward into physical matter, or the Tantric Kundalini coiled up at the base of the spine just waiting to rise, they all act as this universal cycle of descent and return. It's basically an energetic round-trip ticket. Here is our game plan for today to make sense of all this. First, we'll look at three systems, one journey. Then we'll break down the Tree of Life as our map, Kundalini as the rising fire, and the Merkaba as the cosmic vehicle. From there, we'll reveal the unified consciousness matrix and finally show how modern science actually validates this ancient mysticism. We are going to break this incredibly complex schematic down into totally relatable, functional parts.
Okay, let's kick things off with part 1, 3 systems, 1 journey, a universal architecture of consciousness.
To really understand the anatomy of this machine, the biggest thing to realize is that these aren't competing ideologies at all. It's more like the Tree of Life describes what exists, right? It's the static blueprint, the map. Kundalini describes what happens when you activate it, so that's your kinetic energy, your fuel. And the Merkaba describes what this fully activated system looks like from the outside, that's the 3D vehicle. They are literally just 3 different lenses focused on the exact same territory.
Which leads us right into part 2, the Tree of Life, the map, featuring 10 Sephiroth and 3 pillars. This brilliantly illustrates exactly how consciousness is organized. So the tree features 10 centers, the Sephiroth, arranged into 3 vertical columns. You've got the left pillar, representing severity, which governs contraction and form, mapping to those lower frequency domains between 0 and 200. The middle pillar is all about integration and balance, hitting your mid-frequencies up to about 450, and then the right pillar represents mercy, expansion, and that higher source connection, operating at the highest frequencies up to 1,000. It shows you exactly how consciousness scales vertically, all the way from dense physical manifestation at the bottom, straight up to divine unity at the top.
All right, moving on to part 3, Kundalini, the rising fire, our internal energy system. Now watch how this ascent path actually builds. It starts with unconscious energy just resting down at the root chakra, the Muladhara. Once that's awakened, the energy rises straight up vertically through the Sushumna, which is your central spinal channel. And as it climbs, it pierces through these distinct frequency centers until it hits the crown, the Sahasrara, reuniting with the source. It's literally like lighting a fire at the base of a stack and just watching it rise right up your spine, illuminating that map from the inside out.
So once that fire is lit, you obviously need a way to travel, which brings us to part 4. Merkaba, the cosmic vehicle, the external multidimensional field.
Let's quickly define this term. Mer means light, Ka means spirit, and Ba means body. Put it together, and it forms this incredible 3D star tetrahedron, basically 2 interlocking pyramids. Now, what's truly mind-blowing about this 3D structure is that the Merkaba is structurally just an encoding of the Tree of Life itself. It has the exact same pathways and geometry, but it gets activated as a massive 55-foot diameter field radiating right around the human body.
You can really clearly see the juxtaposition here. Kundalini happens inside the body along the spine, and it profoundly shifts a person's internal consciousness. The person literally becomes the fire. The Merkaba, on the flip side, happens outside the body, transforming the person's external energy field. The person builds the vehicle. So the fire powers the ship.
And that brings us to part 5, the unified consciousness matrix, the master convergence.
Just look at how flawlessly these totally distinct frameworks align, row by row. It's wild. At the base, the physical anchor of the Tree of Life, Malchut, perfectly matches the root chakra, Muladhara, which matches the downward apex of the Merkaba, and even matches the human brainstem, specifically the medulla. Move up to the heart center, Tiferet on the tree, Anahata in yoga, matching the amygdala system. Go all the way to the top to Keter, the crown, the upward apex, and the Akashic connection. Guys, these are not coincidences. It is a literal one-to-one mapping of spiritual anatomy directly onto physical biology.
Which perfectly tees up Part 6, Science Validates Ancient Mysticism. Physics meets the spiritual mainframe.
Now, if you're sitting there thinking this is all just abstract, esoteric mysticism, let's ground this mind-bending synthesis in hard, modern science. Visualize the spiral path of Kundalini. The feminine and masculine energy channels, Ida and Pingala, cross over the central spine at the precise locations of the chakras. That perfectly mirrors the geometry of a DNA double helix, where hydrogen bonds connect the two strands. The ancient yogis were literally describing the microscopic geometry of human DNA twisting around a central axis, thousands of years before we even had microscopes.
And consider this specific number, 0.9 C. When the Merkaba's counter-rotating geometric fields are fully activated, texts say they accelerate to 9/10 the speed of light. That is absolutely not an arbitrary mystical number. That astonishingly matches the exact intrinsic spin frequency and orbital speed of electrons in physical matter. The vehicle of ascension is operating at the literal atomic speed limit of reality.
Or how about 137.5 degrees? This one single number, the golden angle, is the mathematical operator for optimal energy packing in nature. It's the exact angle of sunflower seeds and spiral galaxies, and guess what? It perfectly spaces out the paths on the Tree of Life, the physical distances between the Kundalini chakras, and the exact angles of the Merkaba's vertices. It's basically the universal code of efficiency.
Furthermore, if you look at modern chrononeutrino theory, these ancient frequency domains map perfectly to actual cosmic physical substrates. The low tier of the root maps to standard cellular resonance. The middle tier of the heart maps to electromagnetic coherence bands. And that highest tier, the crown, maps directly to the immutable 1.95 Kelvin neutrino background of the universe itself. These ancients map the physics of the cosmos using nothing but their own consciousness.
So, to wrap this all up into a grand synthesis, we are looking at one vertical axis of ascent, a triadic structure of high, mid, and low frequencies, all of it bound by golden ratio geometry to perfectly optimize energy flow, and unified by a master mathematical framework that researchers call the OM equation. So these shamans, mystics, and yogis, they weren't just making things up or having wild, disconnected visions. They were accurately observing and describing the exact same universal field architecture, just using the specific tools and languages of their own cultures.
It's an absolutely incredible schematic of human potential. You are walking around right now with the map written straight into your biology, the fuel resting at the base of your spine, and the blueprint for the vehicle in your energy field. Which leaves us with one final, very profound question. Now that you possess the map, the fuel, and the vehicle, where will you choose to travel? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.